A steerable telescope as big as St. Paul's Cathedral, delicate enough to fix a point in space, strong enough to resist whatever winds might blow. To be enormous and minute at once, both vast and precise. Nearly 2,000 tons of metal to move with the exquisite delicacy of a wristwatch. Heavy steel bones to be separately forged and drilled and assembled into the skeleton of the gigantic instrument. The radio telescope has its own brain.
The 9000 series is the most reliable computer ever made. No 9000 computer has ever made a mistake or distorted information.
The electronic device of indescribable intricacy that will keep this questing instrument on its fixed space target as the Earth goes round. An expert, trained mathematician would take about 20 minutes to calculate the precise bearing of the telescope for one momentary position of any defined point in space. But this overeducated device, fed with its data, can do it in a fraction of a second. Web of steel, a monumental product of engineering enterprise and skill. The refinements of pure science are here to the end that a handful of British scientists and astronomers may probe further than men have probed before, may lead the civilized world over the threshold of new knowledge, prizing from the hitherto silent cosmos more of the secrets of creation, receiving the radio waves emitted by the collisions of galaxies of stars at distances beyond the range of the largest optical telescopes, taking us back thousands of millions of years in time and space to reveal the condition of the universe as it was near the time of its origin. And the telescope is also equipped with a radio transmitter. When necessary, it becomes the world's most powerful radar installation, to study the radio echoes from meteors, the aurora borealis, the moon and planets, and even man-made satellites. Give us the tools, said the scientists, and we will do the job.
Without your space helmet, Dave, we're going to find that rather difficult.
But light is not the only message to reach us from these outer spaces. There are other instruments than eyes.
Hello, Moon. Can you hear me? This is Jodrell Bank calling.
The force of terrestrial gravity is equalized by centrifugal force, and the Sputnik would revolve around the Earth eternally like the Moon, were it not retarded by the atmosphere.
Good evening, Dave.
How you doing, Hal?
Everything's running smoothly, and you?
Well, not too bad.
Do you mind if I ask you a personal question?
No, not at all.
Hereafter, when they come to model heaven and calculate the stars, how they will wield the mighty frame, how gird the sphere, Gravity frame stares at the sky. The great inquiring machine of the 20th century. And the stars look down.
The Earth on which we live is part of the solar system. The parent body is the Sun.
Which is an ordinary star. The Sun appears to be close and hot.
Big to us.
Simply because we're rather close to it.
We're 93 million miles away, and it's important to realise that the whole solar system
is a microcosm of the universe.
Now,
In order to appreciate the immensity of the cosmos, it may be useful to think in terms of its size.
if we were travelling with the speed of light.
186,000 miles a second. If we set out on such a journey from Earth, we would pass the Moon in a second or so.
we would pass the Sun in 8 minutes. And after about half an hour,
We'd move out of the confines of our own solar system altogether. We'd then travel in interstellar space for 4.5 years.
Before we approach the nearest star. We will continue this journey for something like 100,000 years,
and every few years we would pass a little star.
which was in effect another sun.
Now, in this local galaxy, or Milky Way system, in which we would be travelling,
Are 100,000 million stars.
Arranged not uniformly, but in a flattened disk. And on Earth, as part of the solar system,
We're not at the centre of this disk.
is one time belief.
we're right out of one of the spiral arms, so far away from the central regions that it takes light about 30,000 years to travel from the Sun to the centre of our galaxy. With our modern optical and radio telescopes, we can penetrate so far into space
That we receive the radio waves and the light which has been travelling from these distant galaxies of stars for a few thousands of millions of years. It's within this scope of the science of the cosmos to which we can penetrate with our instruments.
that one has to assess the possibility of whether life
As we know it on Earth is unique in the entire universe.
Just a moment. Just a moment.
Radio, radar, the science of the invisible. Light waves are one part only of what is called the electromagnetic spectrum. We can see them. Until recently, we have depended on them alone, searching the sky through the small optical window. Shorter than light waves are the invisible X-rays, which need special apparatus for their detection. And longer, far longer, up to several thousand meters long, are radio waves. No eye can ever see them. No optical telescope, however big, can trap them.
Much better now. I really do.
So to the radio astronomers of Jodrell Bank, the great tempting universe hung above and around.
Well, yes, of course, that's what I really want. A fully steerable telescope with a bowl about 250 feet in diameter.
I think the very fact that it could be demonstrated
that intelligence of our type existed elsewhere in the universe
would obviously have profound philosophical,
theological repercussions.
Dave, this conversation can serve no purpose anymore.
One must presume that if organisms have survived to the state to which Earth organisms have survived,
that at least on some of the planets belonging to some of the stars in the cosmos,
there must be organisms in extremely highly developed states of consciousness.
to such an extent that we can have very little conception on Earth of the degree of intelligence and consciousness which might have been reached, or indeed the relation of that kind of consciousness to that which we understand ourselves.
Since our star is not necessarily like all stars, and therefore our planet is not a very old planet, is it not possible that if intelligent life has come about elsewhere, it might be even millions of years more advanced than our own?
That is possible. We're not all that young.
The age of the Earth is 4,500 million years. The so-called age of the universe is about 10,000 million years. And it's unlikely that the stable planetary systems which are capable of supporting life can be tremendously older than our own Earth. Factors of perhaps 50% more. But of course we're talking in terms of thousands of millions of years here.
And the question as to whether there might be a civilization with another million years of development can be conceived quite easily. The answer is that there may well be.
Do you believe there has been an effort to contact Earth by radio?
The question as to whether any efforts have been made to contact the Earth by radio can't really be answered.
Of course, a number of attempts have been made.
And are still being made by people largely with telescopes on Earth
to contact civilizations.
But any claims to success have never been substantiated.
The possibilities of radio communication have only been realised on Earth
During the last 50 years.
We're considering the possibility of there being civilizations in the universe which have existed
For many thousands, or tens of thousands,
or even 100,000 years longer than our civilization,
and their interest and techniques would therefore have reached a degree
which is impossible for us to conceive.
It may be said that they would know all about us.
And would regard as futile the possibility of communicating with us.
Or would have given up the attempts many hundreds of years ago.
when they found we were not in a fit state to respond.
And radio transmitters, which, with the help of outside antennas, have sent signals down to the Earth.
It can only be attributable to human error.
Made its appearance now in the southern hemisphere. We follow its movement on the map.
Civilization,
which was in advance of ours,
but not so dramatically in advance that it had no concept of our problems or the perils of our own age.
For example, if we could imagine ourselves making contact with a civilization which was to say 50 years,
or 100 or even a few hundred years ahead of our own,
then this could be of tremendous importance.
Because we might be able to establish a type of communication in our own idiom.
And we might receive extremely valuable information which might guide Earth's civilization over the immediate day-to-day perils which it faces.
Because it's also, I think, the natural assumption that many extraterrestrial developments must have gone through the problems of the atomic age with all its dangers. They would either extinguish themselves, or the very fact that we were communicating with them would imply that they'd survived.
You see, we happen to be passing into a unique phase of development on Earth.
In this, our future is going to be sharply distinguished from our past.
In 10 or 20 years, there will be many areas of possible scientific development on Earth which simply will not be followed.
Because the economy of Earth will not allow it.
Yes. It's puzzling.
Some kind of guidance from the civilization which has passed through this phase and has survived it by 50 or 100 or a few hundred years could be of immense importance.
And this is, I think, a sort of optimistic outlook which one would like to have as regards the impact of successful contact with some other civilization.
Straight away.
You must ask the powers that be.
Let's see what president.
What do you mean, dog?
Can you cut that, please? He doesn't want to speculate on the origin of life on Earth.